Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Badwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to make the complicated simple. How do you take complicated topics, complicated challenges, complicated issues, and simplify them down into something that you can handle, something that you can attack, something that you can address, take care of, and of course, ultimately solve. I'm going to get into that in one moment. First of all, let me tell everybody I have a daily motivation text that I send out every single day free of charge to everyone who is in my texting community. I want you to receive that text. So here's all you have to do. Send me a text at my number, which is 305-384-6894. Send me a text at that number every day. I'm going to send you a message that's going to keep you focused, sharp, and on point for the day ahead. And as a bonus, you can actually respond to any one of those texts and you'll be talking directly to me. My number 305-384-6894. Now, this subject of making it complicated simple, this is one of my areas of expertise. This is one of my soft skill areas of expertise. This is in my top three, being that I am a super analytical guy that I am. And this is, even though it is a natural trait of mine, is something that I can also break down and explain because I'm a very analytical person. So I'm going to do that here today and explain to you. For any of you who's dealing with a complicated challenge, or you will be dealing with a complicated challenge, or if you can think back to any complicated situations that you have been in life and you want to maybe deconstruct and debrief yourself and figure out how could I have handled that maybe a little bit differently and maybe more efficiently. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So if you're interested in that conversation, buckle up, grab something to take notes with, and let's get into it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is how to make the complicated simple. Number one thing you must do is you must learn how to compartmentalize. Compartmentalization is a subject that I dove into back in episode 1362. If you have not listened to that one, it is linked down below in the show notes. And again, every episode in the history of the show you can find at either dreallday.com. You have to search through each episode though, or you can just go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. That's where I suggest you go. Workonyourgamepodcast.com, where we have every episode in the history of the show listed right there on one page. You can listen to any one of them right there on the spot. Simple explanation of what compartmentalization is very simply handling one thing at a time. Handling the thing that you're dealing with right now. So if you're a volleyball player and you got some issues going on at school, and you got some things going on with your significant other, and you got some challenges at home, and there's something happening in the news that you can't stop paying attention to, compartmentalization means for that hour and a half that you're at volleyball practice, all you're focusing on is the volleyball practice. And all those other things that you got going on, they will be there waiting for you when you're done. Compartmentalizing is being able to put all of that other shit aside and focus on the main thing while you're doing that thing. And how do you know what the main thing is? The main thing is the thing that you're doing right now. So me right now, I can have 100 other things going on that all will require my attention at some point and on some level. But while I'm on this mic recording and talking to you, what I'm focused on is recording and talking to you. That is compartmentalization. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Dre, doesn't everybody just naturally do that? The answer is absolutely not. The way that some people don't do this is because when they are doing the thing that they're at, let's say you're at work right now, but instead of being focused on the work that you're doing, what you're thinking about is what's going on at home, what's happening on the news, what's going on what the doctor told you, what one of your friends has going on at their job. You're not even there mentally all the way present in the situation that you're dealing with. I was listening to this marketing training the other day, and this guy was telling this story. This is an older guy, and he was talking about how he's not into like the smartphones and the social media and all that stuff. And he gave this quick little anecdote. He was making a bigger point, but this quick little anecdote. He said he was driving through his neighborhood and he got really angry because he drove past this house, and in the front yard he sees a man who was playing catch with his kid. But while he was playing catch with his kid, he was throwing and catching the ball with one hand. And he was talking on his cell phone on the other hand, with the other hand. And the man who's talking, he says, man, I want to stop my car, get out and strangle this guy. I'm like, man, you're letting your kid know that they're so unimportant that you got to be on the cell phone while you're playing catch with them. What kind of message are you giving them? The point that I'm giving you here, the reason I'm sharing that is the anecdote of that's a person not being present. They are not compartmentalizing. All right, that's the opposite of compartmentalization. Okay, so the opposite of compartmentalization is what many of you wrongly believe is what we call multitasking. It's actually an oxymoron, but you're not actually multitasking, but you think you are. That is what multitasking is, the opposite of compartmentalizing. Okay, so whatever you think you're doing when you're multitasking, I want you to stop doing that and start compartmentalizing so that you can do what we're talking about here, making it complicated simple. One way that we make our lives complicated is when we overload our brains and try to do something that our brains are not designed to do. And what is that? Doing more than one thing at a time. And I'm pausing there to let that one sink in. Whenever you feel like you are doing more than one thing at a time, or you feel like you are multitasking, what you're actually doing is setting yourself up for what we all know as overwhelm. What is overwhelm? What does overwhelm mean to you? I talked about overwhelm in episode 1366. If you ever feel overwhelmed, I tell you what the number one reason is. Actually, the main reason, and usually the only reason that we ever feel overwhelmed, it all comes back to one thing, is when you are trying to do something that the human brain was not designed to do, which is doing more than one thing at a time. The human brain cannot focus on more than one thing at a time. Have I said that enough here? You cannot be at work and be thinking about what's going on at home and be good at either one. All right, so you're not going to solve the problems at home from work, and you're not going to do your best work if you're thinking about what's going on at home, and vice versa. Compartmentalization is your ability to put aside everything else that's going on in your world and focus on the thing that you're doing right now. This is one of the easiest ways to take a complex situation like your life and simplify it. Let me just focus on where I'm at right now. Okay, I know I got to do this at home. I know I got to go see the doctor. I know the dentist told me this. I know I got to handle this stuff in my business. I know I got to take care of this money situation. But right now, I'm at the gym working out. Let me just focus on this workout for the next 45 minutes. That's compartmentalization. You can simplify your life a lot if you can just develop this skill. Notice this has nothing to do with resources, has nothing to do with how much time you have available. This has nothing to do with any certain skill set, has nothing to do with how good or how bad you're doing in life. This is just a simple choice. And see, this is why anyone can take a complex situation and make it simple, because this is a matter of choice. This is not a matter of skill. It is not a matter of resource. It is not a matter of access. It is not a matter of talent. It is not a matter of status or accomplishment. It is a matter of decision. Stop trying to do what your brain was not designed to do. Your brain is not designed to handle more than one task at once. So wherever you are right now, if you're driving, drive. If you're at work, be at work. If you're at home with your kid, be there with your kid. If you're with your significant other, be with them. If you're in the gym working out, work out. Do one thing at a time. Everybody follow me. Now, you can listen to this because audio doesn't require your complete total attention. You can passively be listening to this or be actively listening but physically doing something else at the same time. That's not multitasking because it's not requiring multiple focuses. But you understand what I'm saying. Like this guy playing catch with his kid while talking on the phone, he's not being completely present in either one. Everybody following what I'm saying? When you have a big complex issue or situation to handle, and maybe your whole life is a big complex issue or situation for some of you, the big idea here is not to look at the entire thing and ask yourself, how am I going to handle all of this? That's what many people do. And when you ask yourself that poorly worded question, is it bad strategy? Is it bad formula to be setting yourself up for by asking that question? You're setting yourself up for overwhelm. You're setting yourself up for something that you can't do. You're asking yourself a question that you can't answer. All right, and this leads to frustration because you ask yourself a bad question. I got a book called Ask Yourself a Better Question, so you can stop doing it. All right, if you find yourself asking yourself bad questions, you should probably stop doing it. The better strategy, the smarter strategy in this situation is to look at one piece of the situation, the piece that you can handle right now, and handle that. This is the exact same thing if you've ever heard me talk about how do you set goals. You look at your ideal outcome, your down the line outcome. What's the thing you want to achieve a year from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now? And then you just ask yourself the question, what would need to be true for this to actually occur? And then you break that down. What would need to be true? Once you have that answer, ask again, what would need to be true for that piece to occur? Then ask again, what would need to be true for that to occur? And you keep breaking it down until you get to an action point that you can take right now. You get to an action step that you can take right now. It's the exact same thing that I'm saying here with compartmentalizing. Don't look at your 10-year plan of having $100 million and 10 houses and 25 cars, and right now you have $25 in your bank account and you're living in your parents' basement and taking a bus, and ask yourself, how am I going to do all of that? You'll feel overwhelmed because you won't know how to do all of that in one shot. There is no way to do it. But if you break it down, you can get to an action step you can take right now. Like, how about I go get a job and maybe get some clean clothes to put on and shave? Maybe then you can start there. So that's what compartmentalizing is breaking things down to the simplest step you can take right now. And the simplest step any of us can take right now is to focus on the task at hand. Everybody following me so far? Have I lost anybody yet? So look at the one piece you can handle now and take care of that. Then the next piece, take care of that. Then the next piece, so forth and so on. So think of if you go to a restaurant and they fill your plate with a whole lot of food. And this is what restaurants tend to do. Now, any of you who follows me on social media, you know I get my meals delivered by Health Rush down here in South Florida. One great thing about getting a meal delivery service, on top of the fact that you don't have to think up meals or think of what you're going to eat or buy groceries for recipes to make food. The other great thing that is often overlooked is the portion control. Is that when you get a meal delivery service, they actually give you the amount of food that you need to be eating each meal, which is usually a lot less than what, especially us Americans, because we are the most obese country in the world. We eat way more food than we need to eat. This past weekend, I went to this restaurant, Anna and I went to this restaurant down here in Miami. And we ordered a whole bunch of appetizers and stuff. I think we were hungry when we got there. So we ordered a bunch of appetizers, but then I ordered an entree and I ordered a burger. It was a bacon cheeseburger and it came with fries. And the whole plate was filled with food, and it was not the burger. They gave me so much, it was so many fries, like the food was damn near falling off the plate. And in America, this is what we do. We give ourselves way too much food, and this is why people are obese, because we have this, our human brains are designed, they are designed to try to complete things. So if you put a whole bunch of food on somebody's plate, they'll eat it all. You put a little bit of food on somebody's plate, they'll eat that all too. But the point is, I'm drawing the analogy here of when you have a really big meal, you don't try to eat the whole plate at once. You don't stuff all the food in your mouth at once. You eat it a little bit at a time. Now, this is actually not even the best analogy because you shouldn't eat all that food. And I did not eat all the food they put on that plate because it was way too much. The point is, you eat one piece at a time. When you go to Thanksgiving dinner, you don't eat the collard greens and the macaroni and cheese and the stuffing and the biscuits and the turkey and the cranberry sauce and the dessert and drink the wine and the champagne all in one gulp, right? You eat one bite at a time. Right? It's the exact same thing I'm telling you here today to compartmentalize. One piece at a time. You don't eat the entire plate. So one spoonful, one forkful at a time. But if it's too much, don't eat the whole thing, as a side note. So the same way that I tell you to break down reaching your goals, work backwards until you get there. Don't try to reach the entire goal once in a moment. It's kind of like a basketball team. We got any basketball players or coaches or fans listening to me right now? If a basketball team is losing by 20 points, what do? Last time that I checked, I don't play basketball anymore. The last time I checked, though, there's no such thing as a 20-point shot. Now, the last I heard, the most you can get for one shot is 3 points. So a basketball team can't make a 20-pointer to tie the game. What can you do? You score one basket at a time, then play defense, get the ball back, then you score again. Then you play defense, get the ball back, score again. Compartmentalization, one piece at a time. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to make the complex simple. Number 2, strategize for handling the situation. Create a strategy for how you will handle the situation. One thing at a time is a strategy in itself. Now let's go deeper to strategize, is asking yourself, okay, what is the one thing right now? What's the next one thing? What's the next one thing? And what's the plan to achieve each of these one things? Each one, break it down as a strategy. And then the next one, make a strategy for that. And then the next one, a strategy for that. The reason people accomplish big goals in life is not because if you happen to either be one of these people or you are looking at them from the outside in, it's not because they are smarter than other people. It is not because they work harder, even though many of you have been taught all of this bullshit is not true. They're not smarter than you, and you're not smarter than them if you're one of the people accomplishing big goals. It is not because they or you work harder than other people, even though you may be a hard worker. And it's not because they or you are more lucky than other people. That is not the reason why you accomplish a goal. Even though you may be smart, Maybe you do work hard and maybe you are lucky. Those are not the reason why you achieve those goals. You achieve the goals because you operate by accurate formulas and utilize strategies to achieve your outcomes. Here's what people who don't achieve big goals do. They just randomly do stuff and hope that it works out. This is the difference between success and failure, folks. Successful people operate by accurate formulas, whether they created the formula themselves or they got it from somebody else. Unsuccessful people operate by inaccurate formulas, whether they created that inaccurate formula themselves, they got it from someone else, or they just don't have a formula at all. That's usually the case. They're just randomly doing stuff and then things don't work out and then they ask themselves, well, why am I unsuccessful? It's because you don't have a formula. This is why people go to court, go to conferences, take courses, listen to podcasts, read books, hire coaches, join masterminds. Why? Because there are formulas within those that they use to achieve their goals. Understand, folks, when I say accurate formulas, some of you, your head might be spinning when you hear that because you have no idea what it means. Understand, you don't need to know what it means. All you got to do is go find somebody who does and just do what they did. Simple as that. We call it modeling. You see what somebody else did, it clearly works, you do it, you get the outcome. Simple as that, folks. You just got to be operating by an accurate formula. I didn't say you have to create the formula. You just got to have an accurate formula. This is how people who achieve success get there in any area. And if you're listening to this right now, think about this. There's some areas of your life in which you have the success you want, maybe even more than you even thought you would get, simply because you are operating by an accurate formula, whether you are aware of it or not. And there may be other areas, same person in your life, where you don't have the success you want. And this is because right now you are either not operating by or not fully executing on an accurate formula that would work. Simple as that. So ask yourself, which one are you actively using right now? Are you using an accurate formula or an inaccurate one? And you can know by looking at your results. Listen to episodes 1526 and 1648, where I talked about strategy. Again, link down below in the show notes and all episodes at workwhenyourgamepodcast.com. In my experience, everybody, and just to let you know what my experience is, I usually work with really smart people who have a very solid idea of what they're doing. For the most part, I don't work with amateurs who have no idea what they're doing and they're kind of just starting out and trying to figure things out from zero. I know I work with a few people like that, but most of the people who I work with in my coaching programs and my masterminds, people who are clients of mine, usually these are people who already have achieved a certain level of success. All right, these are not people who have no idea what to do and they're just expecting me to be the brains for them. The people that I work with, when they are faltering, it is always because either one of two things. They're either not using any strategy, at least in that particular area at that time. See, somebody could be making a lot of money, but they're not using proper strategies when it comes to their fitness or their health or their relationships or their disciplines or something like that. Or they are simply not following their strategy. They have one, but they're not following it. They're simply not executing. This is why in my mastermind, I tell you the three things we work on. What? Strategy, accountability, execution. Right? I just laid it out for you right there. It's not you have no idea what to do, you're a complete idiot. That's not part of the framework here. Strategy, accountability, execution. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to make the complex simple. Number 3, stop making things bigger than they are. This harkens back to what I talked about in point number 1, when you are trying to do everything at once, or the basketball team trying to make a 20-point shot, or the football team who's down by 25 points, or there's no 25-point touchdown. All right, you got to get the ball back and score again. This is a challenge for all of us when we are not strategizing and not using compartmentalization in our lives, because we look at this big picture thing and we try to figure out a way to complete the whole picture in one shot. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Can't do it all in one shot. Now, it's one piece at a time. When you look at the big picture of the challenge in front of you and you get stuck trying to figure out how you will handle it, it's simply because you're trying to do it all at once. The brain is incapable of doing this, folks. Everybody hear what I'm saying? I'm not saying you are personally incapable. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying human beings cannot do it. And are you human? All right, last time I checked, most of you who are listening are humans. The human brain cannot complete the entire big picture at once. It needs to have things broken down for it. I want you to work within the confines of your capabilities. As a human being, one thing at a time. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? These principles that I tell you here on this show, they all work within each other. It's like one big jigsaw puzzle every episode of the show. And this is why I give it to you from different angles. Do not try to handle it all at once. You will fail You will get overwhelmed. And what usually happens when people try to handle things all at once and they realize that they can't is that they throw their hands up and quit, and then they do nothing. And then they fail by default. Usually people don't fail because they did a whole bunch of stuff that didn't work. They fail because they tried a few things that didn't work, and then they realize it doesn't work. They don't have any other options. Then they just do nothing. That's usually what most people do. One attribute of accurate thinking, folks, is that we look at things as they are while not making them smaller than they are. That means like ignoring a problem and acting like it's going to go away. That's a failing strategy. Or making it bigger than it is. Making something seem like it's this huge, crazy catastrophe when it's really not that big of a deal. That's another failing strategy. And I want you to understand, accurate thinking also involves looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing who you are. Realizing that you as a human being, again, I'm not talking about you personally, or insert your name. I'm talking about you as a human being, cannot do more than one thing at a time. You must compartmentalize. Successful people all compartmentalize, even if they can't articulate that that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. All right, that's why I'm here, to help you understand what they're doing. This accurate thinking strategy allows us to all stay mentally centered and focused on the task at hand, one thing at a time. The point being, everybody, things are usually not as complex as we make them out to be in our minds, because the human brain is wired more for avoiding fear than it is for gaining pleasure. Things are already usually very simple. If we can look at them logically and not emotionally, guess what? They will stay simple. It's our emotions as human beings and our ability to think into the future and consider things that have never happened and never will happen. That's what makes us different from animals, but that not only works for us, but it also works against us. And when we start imagining bad shit happening that never actually occurs. Any of you ever done that before? Yeah, you have, huh? Okay. This is one way that we compartmentalize, one thing at a time, and staying focused on the task at hand. Let's recap today's class, which is how to make the complicated simple. Point number one, compartmentalization. Go listen to episode 1362 so you understand what this means. The simple explanation is handling one thing at a time. If I had to break that whole episode down to one sentence, there it is. For those of you who like the Cliff Notes version, those of you who want the details, go listen to episode 1362. Handle one thing at a time, then the next thing and the next thing. If you're eating a big meal at Thanksgiving, you don't put all the food in your mouth at once. You eat one bite at a time, but if it's too much food, don't eat it all. Portion control, keep that in mind. If you're a basketball team losing by 20 points, there's no 20-point shots. One basket, get the ball back, score again. Point number two, strategize for handling the situation. People who achieve big goals are not necessarily smarter, harder workers, or more lucky. Even though they may have all of those things on their side, that's not the reason for their achievement. It may be an element of their achievement. It is not the reason for their achievement. The reason is they are operating by accurate formulas and using strategies to achieve their outcomes, whereas unsuccessful people, on the other hand, have inaccurate formulas and are not using strategy at all most of the time. Many of the people that I work with either are not using strategy or they have a strategy. They're just simply not executing on their own strategy. And this is why they need accountability. And that's how they end up finding their way to me. If that sounds like you, just keep listening. I'm going to tell you in a minute how I can help you with that. And point number three, stop making things bigger than they are. This is also a challenge when we are not strategizing, because we're not compartmentalizing. We're not breaking things down. So we look at this big picture and we like, how are we ever going to achieve this? Well, you're not going to achieve all of that at once, but you can if you break it down into simple steps, which is, again, what successful people do. And when you are being successful, that's exactly what you're doing. One attribute of accurate thinking is we see things as they are. We don't make them smaller or bigger than they are. We see ourselves as we are, and we see our own human limitations of one focus at a time. The point being, things are usually not as complex as we make them out to be in our minds. They are already simple. If we look at things logically and not emotionally, guess what? They stay simple and we can easily achieve them. Any human can achieve things when we keep it simple. We mess ourselves up and sabotage our own success when we start making things more complex than they need to be. All this said, let me tell you the three things you need to do right now. Number one, text me to get my daily motivation text straight to your phone every day. My number is 305-384-6894. Number two, go to bulletproofbulletin.com and subscribe to my Bulletproof Bulletin every month. I'm going to send you a new copy of my monthly magazine. That's going deep into the game, deeper than even what you get here on this show every single month, reading material. And number three, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Join my Bulletproof Mastermind. If any one of these three areas is an area of challenge for you, your strategies, meaning operating by accurate formulas, your accountability, making sure you are being held accountable to execute on what you're supposed to be doing, and your execution, actually getting things done and doing what you're supposed to be doing so you're being productive and making the most of your time, money, attention, energy, and focus. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Everybody got those three steps? Text me, Bulletin, University. Work on your game. Dre all day.